small details. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadanandana Yashodanandana Brajadanandana Tera Jamuna Tera Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadanandana Yashodanandana Tera Yamuna Tera Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Madhava Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Gaura Pimanandi. Dayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Pri Vratikacharya Stotra Satta Sri Samad His Divine Grace Chela Boy Saranarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandi Biti Founder Sharia's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Kanandana Samakaya Taksurambiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhuttale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paritana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sivisakam Sa Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tribhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyevasya Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayasabhadvesu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Tamashloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nisreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Mukam karoti vasanam pangam langayate girim. Yad kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. As we did yesterday, we will read one verse from the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, entitled Divinity and Divine Service, and the text we will read is text number 1818. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Kindly repeat after me. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of a service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Yes. Mm. Okay. Mm. So we have started in the last few days to read directly this essay of Gita Nagari. And we are in the what is called part one, conceptions of Gita Nagari. And Srila Prabhupada has been presenting this first section point by point. And the last point we were looking at was the fifth one, where Prabhupada was explaining how the Gita Nagari will therefore be main preaching center. In other words, there is a need for a place where the message of Godhead, where the message of Bhagavad Gita can be simultaneously learned, and therefore Prabhupada very much stressed, we read this also, how such centers uh, will serve two purposes. I mean, two primary purposes. What are those two primary purposes? In order of importance, one is that in those centers there will be the presence of the Arsha Vigraha form of the Lord, so that everyone can be nicely engaged in serving the Lord. So the focus will be on, in this particular context, Prabhupada mentions Parthasarathi. So we have a Parthasarathi temple in Delhi. They're making a center in, they built that temple yet? Already? They have Parthasarathi there? So we have two Parthasarathis. Okay. Well, we have more than one Radha Govinda. Yeah. Naturally, that's that is a place where Parthasarathi originally, yeah, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, and so Prabhupada makes this point. The first thing to be done is to establish the presence of the Lord, so that everyone can be focused on serving the Lord. And what was the second point Prabhupada was mentioning? That these centers will become learning centers, educational centers, right? And in that context, later on, Prabhupada would explain about Varnasrama College and how each center. Now, this is a very big point, actually. It means that not only are our temples like a place of worship, where people come, offer their obeisances and prayers and participate in the arati and whatnot, but actually there should be organized classes. I mean, it is happening to some level in some of our centers, but all of the centers are meant to be, we could say, educational institutions in that sense. I mean, specifically, they're meant to be what Prabhupada coined later on as Varnasrama College. And why did Prabhupada call this college Varnasrama College? Because he was very clear on the need to establish the basic norm of the Vedic culture, which is most ideally presented within the context or the framework of Varna and Ashrama. Otherwise, there is a tendency, and we spoke about this as well, and this is actually in many ways what happened after the departure of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When we become too focused on either of those sides, when we become too spiritual and forget to be human, or when we become too human and forget to be spiritual, that is the difference between like what we call the humanists or humanity. Those are just focused on, yeah, then you develop a material concept of life, isn't it? And you minimize the spiritual. And then the opposite danger is that you just become so spiritual that you forget the human side, the material side, which is where the whole concept of Varna and Asrama is actually promoting the spiritual side, isn't it? In many ways, Varnasrama is having that. We say that Varnasrama is material, but in one sense, it's not really completely material because the ashramas are there, isn't it? If it was only a Varna, means material occupation, then okay, that's material. Of course, when we dovetail that in Krishna service, it becomes spiritual, spiritualized. But the presence of the ashramas helps to make that balance, isn't it? Yeah, Varna and ashrama. So these two points are were mentioned, and we had not completely finished point number 5 because Prabhupada continues quite extensively here. But he began point number 5. The Gita Nagari will be therefore the main preaching center. Yeah. Okay. Yes. And we were also reading, I think one of the last points that we were discussing is how India or Indians, people born in the land of Bharatvarsha. Now, Prabhupada, in one of those lectures of the Nectar of Devotion, he mentions, while speaking about how Indians have neglected their duty, the Brahmanas especially, Prabhupada explains, have neglected to look after the fallen souls. Not only here in India, but also outside of India. It's like a double neglect. And therefore, things have gone astray in India. Varnasrama has become, to use Prabhupada's word, vitiated, isn't it? Corrupted, polluted. And because of that, when you have too many problems at home, you can't think about your neighbors. You can't think about the rest of the world. So in that lecture, Prabhupada was mentioning how the main defect in India is that those who were entrusted the responsibility of protecting dharma, of preaching Sanatan Dharma, they neglected to do that, and therefore now the attempt, Prabhupada is in that lecture explaining how we are making that attempt. We're making a humble attempt to bring people from outside in. So in that context, he mentions, according to my observation, or according to my understanding, the whole of this planet is actually Bharatvarsha. And I was mentioning about this one devotee from Australia. You can remind me, so I can give you the link. But very interesting, very important also. He has made very extensive research in the last at least 5 years, maybe more, and he calls it Vedic geography. Fascinating, because many of the names that we find in different Puranas that describe what most people, including most of our devotees, thought were on some other planet, are actually on this planet, but on other continents. In other words, the Vedic literatures is describing in detail the whole planet, including Australia, and including Indonesia, for example, and it's giving the shape also. Very interesting. So it actually means that when Prabhupada speaks about one world government, as it is described in the Shastra, that there used to be not just like kings, but there used to be like a world monarch or emperor, emperor for the whole world. And then Prabhupada was kind of referring to the disintegration like countries breaking away. More recently, he was giving the example, of course, of Pakistan, for example. But this breaking away from the main culture started a long time back, and of course, going back, let's say 500 years ago, this happened with Indonesia and the Asian countries, for example. And anyone who visits Cambodia and those places immediately can see, hey, this is our culture. Yeah. uh, so maybe I'll just read a short portion of what we read yesterday. This is in section 5. Uh, on the other hand, the native of India only has the prerogative to understand this position of Godhead from the pages of the Bhagavad Gita, and he is alone able to preach this truth throughout the whole world. This is kind of, quite significant because at present, and this has been the case for a long time, it's only, practically speaking, in India where one finds the Bhagavad Gita. Of course, now because of Prabhupada, it's everywhere. And that's why in the past, people would travel, from China and so many different places, isn't it? Stories are there. And I mean, they would take a couple of years, right? Yeah. Yeah, right. This was the practice previously. People would travel by foot, maybe with the help of camels and whatnot. Going through the desert, you need like a caravan and whatnot. And I'm sure many people who did that never made it, right? Because there's so many dangers. Yeah. Um, so Prabhupada is just reiterating what he mentioned many times, that those from India, or India as a country, whatever is remaining of India or Bharatvarsha, has that is the only duty. That's why Prabhupada would get very upset, was very disturbed by the fact that India adopted industrialization, modernization. Yeah. It is therefore desired that to continue here, it is therefore desired that the authorities who shall guide the activities of the Gita Nagari may make such organized effort as will help this mission of the Gita Nagari on a permanent basis. So it means that actually every center is meant to preach in an organized way, and we see how Prabhupada was like super organized, and by establishing the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and introducing so many different ways of getting the message across. Yeah, the pangs of the demoralized type of civilization. So he's speaking about modern civilization, modern day uh, society, designated by the demoniac principled diplomats, are being keenly felt by the people in general, more so than ever. And to save them from the untold miseries of life is to take shelter of the transcendental message of the Bhagavad Gita. And then Prabhupada gives he calls it a vivid picture of the demoniac principled leaders. Prabhupada what's he talking about here? He's talking about the politicians, whom he would call later on as rascals again and again. And Prabhupada was so adamant on this point and so strong and so clear in his vision that he would make statements like, if one is not practicing Krishna consciousness, if one is not preaching Krishna consciousness, he's killing himself and he's killing others. I mean, we don't generally think like that, but actually that is what is taking place. If we are not giving people Krishna consciousness, if we are allowing people to be led, or rather misled, by the maniac leadership, then we are culprit. Yeah, we are part of that. So naturally, Prabhupada's, because Gita Nagari, naturally the whole thing will be focused on Gita, the teachings of Gita. So Prabhupada is quoting directly here, which is quite long, but in the 16th, a vivid picture of the demoniac principled leaders. Very interesting that Prabhupada chose the word principled leaders, is given in the text of the Bhagavad Gita in the 16th chapter as follows. Uh, Maybe you can read. Can you read from there? Maybe you should come closer so that it catches the sound. Huh? No, but oh, actually, this is not actually live, is it? Okay, so then people cannot hear it if you speak. Faint, but they can hear more if you're closer, right? So come a little closer and just speak a little louder. Next week we'll have uh, we'll have him read, possibly. Yeah.
We can know the real heart of an asura in the statement of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. Okay. Read slowly. This is not so bad, but yeah, keep it slow like that.
At the present moment, practically every man is infected with a false sense of prestige, pride, anger, vanity, cruelty, and similar other qualities born of poor fund of knowledge. There are always two classes of men, which one is known as the Devas or the gods, and the other is known as the Asuras or the demons. The Asuras, unable to realize what should be done and what should not be done in the human form of life. Those who are generally endowed with godly qualities do perform charities, possess the power of controlling the sense organs, perform sacrifices, practice penance, non-violence, love, truth, learn tolerance, remain peaceful, refrain from speaking ill of others, become kindly in behavior with others, eradicate lust and hankerings, practice patience and purity of habits. These are some of the many godly qualities of men equal with God. But unfortunately, these godly qualities are rarely experienced in the character of the present generation, and in most cases, the qualities of demons are vividly demonstrated because the demoniac people are unclean.
The demoniac men.
The demoniac men are unclean in habits. Such unclean men do not believe in the existence of God, and they think without any reason that the desire or necessity of life is the ultimate cause of all creations without knowing that disposal is more important cause than desire. The demoniac observation is always defective both in fact and practice. People addicted to demoniac principles, devoid of transcendental knowledge, imperfectly educated, and inventors of violent works lead to miseries and destructions of the world have greatly developed in this age. Although these people indirectly realized that their mode of activities had already diminished the duration of life of the people in general, yet they consider the advancement of material knowledge as progress of life dictated by a strong sense of vanity under the cover of unclean habits. The effects of this pernicious type of material civilization is that people have already forgotten the question of life after death and thus have taken to an irresponsible way of life, leading to untold miseries and distress of material existence. The demoniac way of thinking has covered their unsatiated desire for work and sense enjoyment till the end of material existence. These people are embarrassed with thousands and one desires enlarging the circle of exploiting habits in greater and greater circumference. They have now become mad, so to say, for such enlarged activities of material civilization. Such people think unrestrictedly and at all times like this. I have accumulated so much wealth just now, and in the next I am going to accumulate more wealth. I am God and nobody is equal to my position. I have killed this enemy and I am arranging to kill the other one. I am God and I am the enjoyer of everything. I am happy and I am perfect. I do not think anybody else is richer than me. I can perform all kinds of sacrifices and by doing so I can purchase all virtues.
Yes. So these are directly verses from the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, uh, text 13, 14, and 15. It is a very, very correct and vivid description. I mean, this is, Prabhupada spoke this 50 years ago, but Krishna spoke it. I mean, yeah, it's there in the Bhagavad Gita. In other words, Bhagavad Gita is very clearly and in detail describing the mentality of the maniac personalities, isn't it? And basically, there's always these one of these two mentalities, either the divine or the demoniac. So this is the deplorable condition of the state of affairs in the world today, and the more one is conscious of this, only those who develop knowledge can begin to understand, isn't it, the deplorable condition. Otherwise, people who don't know better, so to speak, they're just caught up in that and have no alternative or no choice but to suffer things. So Prabhupada continues here. Uh, Naturally, Prabhupada, as a someone born in a Vaishnava family, someone having the good fortune to associate with his Guru Maharaj, Prabhupada, who was well versed in the Vedic knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita, was aware of the very fallen condition and therefore wanted to uh, bring the remedy being knowledge. Ignorance is what causes suffering, and knowledge removes that suffering. Mhm. So to continue the text here in Gita Nagari essay, the asuras therefore exhibit a feat of their unalloyed foolishness by such contemplation as above mentioned. That's interesting that the word unalloyed is there, because we hear about Prabhupada using the word unalloyed only when he went to America. So I don't know, maybe somebody did some editing here, isn't it? Because yeah, there's a whole, you know, the story about how Prabhupada started to use the word unalloyed. It was in I believe in Boston. Prabhupada one day was taking devotees to where he had first arrived. He had arrived at the port in Boston, 1965, and so when he took the devotees there, just to show them, they saw this one big like factory building, steel, and on the wall, just like very often they'll write in huge letters, unalloyed steel. Un, Unalloyed steel. So anyway, the way I heard it was that the explanation was given because Prabhupada was always sharp. I mean, observing things, and he would incorporate and utilize, for the preaching mission. So that's why I'm surprised to see the word like before Prabhupada went to the West. Anyways, let's continue here. Mm. Saintly politicians in the modern age like Mahatma Gandhi, saintly politicians, and others inspired by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita although imperfectly, so Prabhupada, does praise Gandhi for being spiritual, but does also point out that
lot of years spoken again.
So Gandhi, inspired by the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, although imperfectly, such persons have tried to lead such demoniac politicians of demoniac principles as they may be influenced by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Mahatma Gandhi's movement in the political field, such as nonviolence, peaceful non-cooperation, truthfulness, sacrifice, etc., these are some brilliant examples of subduing the demoniac tendency of the people in general. Such examples in the life of Mahatma Gandhi made him well recognized all over the world, in spite of there being temporary measures. And it may be safely concluded that Mahatma Gandhi's success in such movements was solely and wholly dependent on the inspiration of the Bhagavad Gita, leaving aside all his other activities in the political field. And here we are now going to be introduced to the four principles or the four movements. Leaving aside all his other activities in the political field, the four following principles which he adopted sincerely in his mature old age are in essence derived from the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for practical application in the matter of social and spiritual upliftment of the present order of things. So this is interesting and important also, that what Srila Prabhupada will be referring to as the four movements, they're coming from the Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? It means that actually, because in the Bhagavad Gita, as we know, Krishna speaks about the Varnas, which is in reference to the four social divisions of society. And later on in the 16th chapter, he speaks about the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. So, so Srila Prabhupada was pointing out here how of all the things that he did, many of those were not really correct, but these four items are directly connected with the Bhagavad Gita. So they are as follows. Leaders and politicians. Number one, leaders and politicians may take lessons from the life of Mahatma Gandhi, who was undoubtedly a great and busy politician with respect to his daily evening prayer meeting and regular recitation of the text of Bhagavad Gita. He followed this principle of life most faithfully, even up to the last moment of his lamented life. We could say that's the reason Srila Prabhupada introduced actually morning and evening program. Evening program being reading of Bhagavad Gita. Maybe we should introduce reading one or two verses of Bhagavad Gita in the evening program. People in general and the leaders in particular may follow the footprints of Mahatma Gandhi if they at all want to do some good to their followers. Such regular habit of reciting the reading of the Bhagavad Gita makes one able to get rid of the demoniac way of life and gradually rise up to the plane of pure devotional life of the gods. When such devotional life is enriched by recitation of the Bhagavad Gita, all the good qualities of the gods automatically overcome the reciter without any extraneous effort on his part. And a person, however qualified he may be in the mundane sense of the term, if he is devoid of the principles of devotional life, as above mentioned, he shall surely hover in the mental or on the mental platform. So this first point uh, is in connection with, well, uh, daily meeting, daily recital, and this Ramdun also comes. Yeah, it's not mentioned here, it'll be mentioned later on. Second, okay, something is strange here. Okay, I'm sorry, yeah. Texts go a little strange sometimes. So I thought I had finished, but it's not quite finished. This first point. I'll just retrace this last sentence I was reading. And a person, however qualified he may be in the mundane sense of the term, if he is devoid of the principles of devotional life, as above mentioned, he shall surely hover in the mental plane of uncertainty, and as such will always fail to enter into the numinous existence of life. Those who have developed such noumenon existence of life. Prabhupada uses some old English. I heard one very interesting anecdote. One of the secretaries, this very early days, Govinda Dasi, she was there like 1967, and Srila Prabhupada, he would spend a lot of time naturally with his early followers, early disciples, and he got to know them quite well about their background and whatnot. So she was like a professional secretary. Being from America, she knew good, decent English, good English. And so Prabhupada had requested her to help him he was writing something. I think maybe Prabhupada was going to present something at the United Nations. And he wanted her to hear it. So, she was quite happy about that. And then she was thinking that, well, okay, Prabhupada is going to speak this, whatever he's, reading to me, to a large audience, important audience. So I just want, her intentions were all good to kind of make it as ideal and perfect for Prabhupada. So anyways, as she was reading Prabhupada's text, she came across one word, and I forget the word, that was not pronounced according to the American dictate properly. Just like, for example, the word irrevocable. I used to pronounce it irrevocable. Irrevocable. is very different from irrevocable, but some people, and I had that habit somehow for some time, irrevocable. So, anyways, that was not the word she. So, but when she came to that word, when Prabhupada was saying it, she said, Prabhupada, in a humble way, um, actually, this word is not pronounced like that. Right? So here she is, disciple of her Guru Maharaj. And although Prabhupada asked her, so when she said that, uh, Prabhupada looked at her and he said, you pronounce this word your way, I'll pronounce it my way. So uh, Prabhupada, Prabhupada was a very, was actually very expert in using words. Of course, some words were not in keeping uh, with the English language, but anyway, that was kind of interesting. You pronounce it your way, I'll pronounce it my way. Uh, mm. So, just to finish this number one, God. Mm. Those who have developed such noumenon existence of life, generally known as spiritual life, are called Mahatmas. In the language of the Bhagavad Gita, the definition of real Mahatma is given in the book, of course, Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and number two is quite long, and I don't think we should begin, but we'll keep that for tomorrow. So, in other words, Prabhupada is beginning here to go through these four movements, and the one we will begin to look at tomorrow is what he uh, what Gandhi referred to as temple entry movement, which in Prabhupada's uh, context he would coin as uh, temple worship movement. Yeah. Okay. So we will close here for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Gaura Pimanande. Yeah. Good.